Hello, everyone. Welcome back to From the Dark Side. I'm your host, Sherry, and I'm so thankful that you decided to join me today. You guys give me the best gift anyone can give someone else, and that's your time. Out of all the voices, all the noise in the world, you chose to listen to mine, and that's a gift I'll never take for granted. Your time is a precious thing, and I won't waste another second of it. Today we're headed to NOLA, aka New Orleans, Louisiana, to talk about a mom of two who disappeared back in 2002. I have been calling it New Orleans my entire life, but the last time I covered a case that took place here, I was corrected by some locals who told me it's pronounced New Orleans. They told me I sounded like a tourist, and I'm glad they corrected me, so New Orleans it is. This case does have closure, but it's not the outcome we all wanted, but it is solved. Dana Pastori told her coworkers that she was giving her 2 weeks' notice. She had plans to move out of state and begin writing her memoir, but Dana never showed up for any more shifts. It wouldn't be until 3 years later, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, that the truth about what happened to Dana was revealed. This is episode 168. The Case of Dana Pastori. This story takes place in both 2002 and 2005. I'll give you the facts from 2002 since that's where it begins. The U.S. was healing from 9/11. The Department of Homeland Security was founded in 2002. Popular movies were The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Star Wars Episode 2, and Spider-Man. Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake called their relationship quits. Everybody's favorite reality TV show, The Osbournes, premiered. And in bizarre news from 2002, a man in New Mexico caught a mouse in his house. He picked it up and threw it outside into a pile of burning leaves. The mouse caught fire and ran back into the home, ultimately burning down his house. The man told reporters, "I was trying to kill it, and I guess it got even." Dana Pastori was born in Corpus Christi, Texas on August 6, 1966. Dana was raised by her mother. Her mom didn't really talk about her dad because they were just a one-night stand kind of thing, so Dana never really knew who her dad was. But in 1992, her dad, whose name is Peter, reached out to her. By now, Dana is 26 years old and married with 2 kids. Dana learned that she had some half-siblings since her father had a family, and Dana was excited to connect with them. They were all adults, and she became especially close to her new half-sister, Kathy. Dana and her husband and children live in Pensacola, Florida. Kathy lives in South Carolina. So Kathy makes the trek south to meet Dana for the first time. The two hit it off and spend days looking at photos and getting to know each other. Kathy says Dana appeared to have it all. She had a beautiful home, a nice husband, 2 kids. Dana and her husband owned and operated an upscale Italian restaurant. Dana was a very private person. There could be things going on in her life that she would keep from others, but she felt comfortable enough with her new sister Kathy that she confided some things to her. She said she was not happy in her marriage. Dana was a very spiritual person. She loved tarot cards, astronomy, crystals, that kind of stuff. Her husband thought it was all just silly. He didn't like that she was into this kind of stuff. Kathy says Dana at one point read her fortune. Kathy says everything Dana predicted came true. There were 3 or 4 things that Dana told Kathy in her fortune, and each one eventually happened. I have never had my fortune read or visited a psychic, but I would be willing to give it a try. Dana tells Kathy that she wants a partner that is into the same kind of stuff that she is. She's not getting it from Frank. In 1994, Dana decides it's over between her and Frank. She wants to go do the fortune and tarot card life. What better place to start than by moving to New Orleans? But she has 2 daughters. So she tells Frank that she's moving to New Orleans, she's going to find a job and get settled into a home. Then she would come back for the 2 girls. Frank tells her, no, the girls are staying here with me in Pensacola, Florida. Dana just tells him, okay, Frank. She's letting him believe that the girls would be with him for good, but she is determined to get them back as soon as she's settled. Dana starts her whole life over when she gets to New Orleans. Her sister Kathy told Disappeared that Dana said this is where she should have been her whole life. These are my people. They enjoyed the same things that she did. She loved living in New Orleans and got a job reading tarot cards on the street. She made the long trip to Florida each weekend to visit her daughters. In April 1995, Dana and Frank's divorce was finalized. The judge had some really bad news for her. She would not be awarded custody of the two girls because Frank told the court that she abandoned them. Dana is like, wait, I just moved out and was getting settled. You knew I was coming back for the girls. Plus, I've been driving all the way to Pensacola, Florida to visit them every week. She didn't abandon them the way that Frank said that she did. To make it worse, Frank has decided he's going to remarry and pack up the girls and move to Ohio. In December 1995, the two girls, who are 8 and 6, are allowed to come to New Orleans to stay a week with Dana. This is a court-ordered visit. Dana noticed something was very wrong. She noticed bruises on them, and they seemed to be anxious and scared, so Dana takes them for a psychological evaluation. The doctor evaluated them and, in a report, noted that the girls were likely victims of abuse. There was a strong suggestion that showed this. Dana believed it was their dad's new wife allegedly doing this. Dana does not want to take these girls back to their home with their dad and new stepmom. She also doesn't want to have to wait for the courts to do their thing. That could be a long time. So she takes matters into her own hands. She calls her sister Kathy and tells her, I have the girls, I'm leaving, and I'll try to stay in contact with you. Dana goes on the run with the children. She's hoping to reach Canada where custody laws are more lenient. She thinks if she sends them home, they will be tied up in the legal system before any changes are made. In the meantime, while they're waiting, they could be abused. In her mind, she's doing anything she has to do to keep her children safe. According to a Chicago Tribune article from 1998, Dana's ex-husband Frank received a letter in the mail from Dana's attorney stating that she was keeping the girls because his new wife Karen had been abusing them. So Dana is on the run for 1 year. The girls were kept out of school. They moved from New Orleans, Ohio, to Mexico, Puerto Rico, Florida, and Seattle. Dana would occasionally call her half-sister Kathy. She always called from a payphone, and she would tell Kathy, we're okay, we're safe, I'll check in with you again in a few weeks. But she would never tell Kathy where she was. Frank had to hire a private investigator to try to track down his children. Dana knows they are closing in on her. Her time on the run was up in January 1997 when the girls were returned to their father. Dana was asked to turn herself in or face 10 years in prison. Her dad, Peter, was a lot of help to Dana since he was a retired police chief. He's doing everything he can to keep her out of trouble. A friend of his in the FBI had reached out to him and told him Dana was spotted in Seattle. On Christmas Day, 1996, Dana called her dad and told him she was done. Her father told her to meet him in Ohio, and she was arrested as soon as she arrived. Her dad used his connections to get her out on bail and released into his custody until her trial. The girls were brought back to Frank and Karen, where they underwent a very detailed examination and home inspection and evaluations. The girls were found not to have been abused by their new stepmom, and the allegations were false. Dana had to come to terms with the fact that Frank and his new wife were not abusing her kids, according to investigators and psychologists and social services. And now that Dana had kidnapping on her record, she would never have custody of them. I'm not sure if Dana was even allowed visitation with the girls again. During the months when Dana lived with her dad, she and her sister Kathy got closer. Kathy lived close by, so she would come over and the two would drink and play cards. Dana would read her fortune. Kathy told the show Disappeared that Dana said she was so happy to be a part of a family. Remember, she's only been in their lives for a short time, even though she's around 30 years old. For the 2 counts of kidnapping, Dana received 2 years of probation. Now that her trial had concluded, she was free to move out of her dad's house. Dana decides she's going to move back to New Orleans. She basically gets in her car and drives there with no job or house waiting. She's going to wing it. I always admire people who are able to do that. I would never have the courage to move somewhere with no resources. She found work as a tarot card reader. She also worked as a cashier at the Quartermaster Deli, which was right next door to her apartment. There she ran into a man named John Morgan. She had met John years ago, and the two hit it off again. John worked as a grocery delivery man for the same place, the Quartermaster Deli, that Dana worked at. He would load his bicycle with bags of groceries and deliver them around the city. They both worked the late night shift. I had to look this place up. It appears to be a restaurant, deli, grocery, and liquor store all in one, and they deliver 24 hours a day. God, I love New Orleans. I've never been there, but it's definitely on my list. John, in addition to being a bike delivery guy for the Quartermaster, was also a tarot card reader. He and Dana fell in love and moved in together. When I first saw a photo of John, I was thinking this guy doesn't look like a tarot card reader. He looks like the guy that comes and fixes your office printer. It seemed like for the first time, Dana had met someone who had the same kind of interest that she had and was also spiritual like she was. They lived and worked right on Bourbon Street, so this is the downtown French Quarter of New Orleans. Dana was saving her money during this time, hoping to get a good lawyer and fight for her daughters to be allowed to come back. Peter, Dana's father, comes for a visit. He isn't too thrilled about this life Dana has made for herself in New Orleans. He doesn't like her cheap apartment. He doesn't think she's safe where she's living. He doesn't like that she's reading tarot cards on the street and working as a cashier late at night in the city. He's not crazy about John either. He thinks he's not a good guy. I can see why he's concerned, but Dana is an adult and can do whatever she wants. She heard what her dad was saying, but she's not going to make any changes, at least not for another 4 years. In 2002, she began to feel like she wants a change again. She's 35 now and hitting a point in her life where she doesn't feel like this place is for her any longer. Dana wants to write a memoir about her life. She wants to get out of New Orleans. It was around this time that folks began to sense a change in John. He was usually a decent guy at the store they worked at, but lately he's been acting differently, kind of dominating and high-strung. They sensed he was doing hard drugs. Some witnesses said that during Mardi Gras, Dana and John had this big explosive argument. Dana then gives her 2 weeks' notice to her job at the Quartermaster Deli. Dana leaving the store would be a huge loss since she's so dependable and does her job really well. But they have her for another 2 weeks, so that will help some, except Dana doesn't show up for any more shifts. Her coworkers ask John, "Where is Dana? She didn't show up for work yesterday and she's not here today. What's going on?" John has an explanation. He says Dana was involved in a really bad car accident with a friend and she's in the ICU in critical condition. Everyone is really concerned and of course people want to go visit her, but John says that she can't have many visitors right now. But John says he's been going to visit her and he will pass along their well wishes. He updates their coworkers every day on her progress. After a few weeks, he tells them that Dana is out of the ICU, but you can't see her because her dad came and picked her up. She needed more hospital care and he took her to a facility out of state. Her coworkers are likely thinking they'll never see Dana again because she had planned on leaving anyway. She put in her 2 weeks and now she's been in this accident and moved out of state. A little while after this, John tells their coworkers that Dana is up and moving around now. She's so far into her recovery that she actually moved out of the country. Her dad paid for her to move to Prague so she could be more inspired writing her memoir. Obviously, her coworkers are thrilled that she's recovered and doing well enough to move internationally, but they're a little skeptical. Another person asking about Dana is her and John's landlord, a lady by the name of Maria. She tells John she hasn't seen Dana around in a few weeks. Where is she? John says that Dana was involved in an accident. A large tool chest had fallen on the back of her neck and caused severe damage. She was in ICU, but eventually her dad came to get her so she could recover closer to their family. John's next update to Maria, the landlord, is that Dana had fully recovered and got a job working as a police dispatcher. Maria asked John why Dana didn't take her little Yorkie dog Ginger with her. John explains that Dana left the dog with him so he could have something to keep him company. Dana's little dog, which meant the world to her, was apparently a breakup gift to John. Meanwhile, Dana's half-sister Kathy is wondering where Dana is because it's been weeks since she talked to her. Kathy would call the apartment and John would say she just went to bed, she's at work, she's at the store. Kathy eventually tries to reach Dana by email, and within a few days, she had a response back. Dana apologized for taking so long to get back to her. She said that life in New Orleans is good, she's busy working all the time, etc. Over the next 3 years, Kathy continues to email back and forth with Dana, but she never actually talked to her or saw her in person. On August 29th, 2005, I didn't even have to look this date up because I knew it by heart because it was my son's first day of kindergarten. On this day, Hurricane Katrina hit landfall in New Orleans. By the first night, the winds were up to 100 miles per hour. The storm sent pounding rain for days, and eventually the levees broke and flooded the whole city. Hurricane Katrina claimed 1,800 lives, and still 20 years later in 2025, there are a couple hundred people who are still missing. I saw a local years ago who said that it was the levees that did it. The city could have survived the hurricane if only the levees would have held up. Dana's family believes this whole time that she is living in New Orleans. So when Hurricane Katrina hit, they are watching the news and praying she made it out okay, but Kathy stops getting emails from her. Dana and Kathy's father, Peter, who lives in South Carolina, reaches out to a police friend in New Orleans and asks him to do some looking around. See if you can find my daughter. Unfortunately, his friend doesn't find anything on Dana, so Peter asks him to do one more favor. He says his daughter has glaucoma and has a prescription medication that she takes every day like clockwork. This isn't an optional medicine. She has to take it or she'll go blind. Peter asks his friend to check with the pharmacies in the area, see when the last time she had her prescription filled was. He finds the pharmacy that Dana had used to get her prescriptions and reports back to Peter that the last time Dana had picked up her medicine was 3 years earlier in 2002. Peter and the rest of the family are horrified to hear this. Peter decides at this point, screw it, I'm calling John. He knows they're probably not together, but maybe he can tell him where Dana has been for the last 3 years. Remember, Kathy talked to her by email frequently, so there wasn't a cause for concern, but now they are questioning everything. John tells Dad Peter that Dana is doing just fine. In fact, she's doing great. She got a check from FEMA after the hurricane, and she took the money and moved to the Czech Republic. Side note, remember John was telling others that Peter funded this move out of the country? This is obviously news to Peter. This guy is just lying to everyone. He's got different versions of what happened to her depending on who he was talking to. Dana is now officially a missing person. It's been 3 years, so they have lost a lot of time. But now law enforcement knows that she's missing. But a lot of other people are missing right now from the hurricane, so this isn't going to be easy. Police meet with Dana's old landlord, Maria. She says that she last saw Dana in 2002 and heard from John that she had been in an accident and moved out of state. She also tells police something that really caught their attention. She said John had a couple girlfriends move in and out after Dana left, but he moved out himself in 2003, along with his current girlfriend, Tracy Greer. When Maria went into the apartment, the smell was horrible. She said that she assumed it was a dead rat in the walls or crawl space and didn't think it could really be anything else. She says she never went into the apartment while John lived there, but when John was moving out, he was carrying bags of clothes, a trunk, and some other items. She asked him why everything smelled so bad, and he said, "Well, I haven't showered in 3 days, so everything kind of smells." Maria said at first she couldn't even go near the crawl space after he moved out. She had to wear a mask. She would run out, catch her breath, and then go back in. She doesn't know how she's going to rent this apartment out with this horrible smell, but she had 2 girls contact her about renting. They were desperate and needed housing. They said they would just deal with the smell and leave all the windows open. She says that it took 2 years to get the smell out of the apartment. It's hard to believe that John was actually bringing women back to this apartment and he was living there himself in this condition. Fast forward to October 2005. This is 2 months after Hurricane Katrina. A couple who live nearby in New Orleans contacts police. The couple are the parents of Tracy Greer, who is John's girlfriend. They explained to police that John and Tracy lived in the upstairs apartment of their house, but recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. John left all of his stuff here. He took what he wanted, but said that we could get rid of the rest. He had gotten his FEMA check and had enough money to leave the state. They are cleaning up their house from Hurricane Katrina's damage and getting rid of stuff in the home, and they say they found a trunk in his belongings. Mr. Hoover takes the trunk outside and he sees it's got a lock on it, so he pries the lock open. John doesn't want it anymore, so he's not breaking into his stuff. He was horrified when he lifted the lid and sees that this trunk contains human remains. They realized John had been storing a dead body at their house for quite a while, but to make matters worse, their daughter Tracy is with him right now in North Carolina and probably has no idea what was in that trunk. Let's talk about the state of this body when it was found, so trigger warning. It was apparent that whoever this was had been dead for at least a couple years. This was beyond the insect stage. In my years of reading autopsy and crime scene reports, the insect stage is usually the worst, but this isn't much better. The body was a skeleton with a small amount of muscle tissue still intact, but it was mummified. The body had been sawed up, the arms and legs had been removed, and the top half was cut above the belly button. So this body is in pieces, but it's mostly a skeleton. They found Dana's wig, which had long brown hair. Nobody really knew that she wore a wig until then. The body had a shirt, a bra, underwear, and shorts on. They also found a lockbox in John's belongings. Inside this box, there was Dana's driver's license, passport, birth certificate, credit card, social security card, pay stub, library card, and a letter from her probation office. Lead Detective Hamilton talks to Dana's mother and offers to send a photo of the body so she could identify it. I cannot imagine having to identify a loved one's body in advanced stages of decomposition. But Dana's mother says, yes, that's her. My thoughts are with this woman for having to see that. So the cause of death was able to be determined even in the condition of this body. A curling iron cord was found wrapped around her neck. The medical examiner determined that she died of strangulation. They have Dana's mother who says, yes, this is my daughter. I can tell it's her. But they need formal confirmation that this is her. So Detective Hamilton has her tibia sent to the crime lab, but they were unable to get any DNA from it since it was just a dry bone at this point. So he tries sending a tooth to the crime lab, and this time it works. An FBI agent reached out to Dana's mother and asked her for a sample of her DNA so they could see if they're a family match. Meanwhile, detectives get in touch with John Morgan, who is living in North Carolina with Tracy. They interview him, and there's not much they can do right now unless he confesses. The reason for this is because the DNA hasn't been confirmed yet to be Dana's. They can't arrest him for murder of a body, and they don't know who the body belongs to. I thought they would be able to since it was in his belongings, but a lawyer could definitely get him out of this, especially because the body had been sitting there a long time. The trunk was sent to North Carolina to be processed by their crime lab since the crime lab in New Orleans had been destroyed by the hurricane. They took DNA samples from John as well. It wouldn't be until late 2007, 2 years after the body was found, that the DNA confirmed the body belonged to Dana Pastori. John had gotten angry with her one night. He strangled her with a curling iron cord. He hid her body in the crawl space of his apartment where it stayed for years. The medical examiner, Dr. James Traylor, determined that her body did not decompose in the trunk, but rather somewhere else, like the crawl space. Then eventually he put her in a trunk and moved the body with him to his girlfriend's parents' house where he stored it there. He moved out after Hurricane Katrina when he got his FEMA check and told her parents they could get rid of his stuff. He made up lies to everyone that she had been in 2 different accidents. She moved to South Carolina. She moved to Prague in the Czech Republic. He communicated via email with her sister Kathy, pretending like he was her. John was arrested on February 8, 2008, nearly 6 years since Dana's murder. He was extradited back to New Orleans. John's girlfriend Tracy had no idea that John had done this horrible crime and was really upset about it. I'd imagine so. He left a dead body at her parents' house for them to find. John's first story was that Dana left him back in 2002 and sent him a card a couple weeks later saying she was fine and had moved into her mother's house in Ohio and was still trying to get custody of her children. Then he changed his story. He claims that he didn't kill her, but she was instead killed by a drug dealer named Pepper because he was John's dealer and Dana was going to turn him into police. He says Pepper killed her and then he helped cut up the body. He actually told this story with excitement, like he was really giddy about it. They don't really have any DNA tying him to the crime, but they have a lot of circumstantial evidence. Everything from leaving her dog, the made-up stories, the trunk that belonged to him. It wasn't long for a jury to convict him. They deliberated for only 40 minutes. In July 2009, 42-year-old John Morgan was found guilty of second-degree murder. John never spoke in court. Instead, he smiled really big when they sentenced him to life in prison, and he sounds like a psychopath. John is still in prison today. He is not eligible for parole, so he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. He did file an appeal in 2010, but the circumstantial evidence was sufficient to prove the murder beyond a reasonable doubt. Dana Pastori would be around 60 years old today. She is not forgotten by her family and her friends, especially her coworkers in New Orleans. She is remembered for her gift of seeing beyond the surface, for the way her tarot cards seemed to open a whole new world for her, and for the comfort, hope, and guidance that she offered so many who crossed her path. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all again soon. Rest in peace to Dana Pastori. Take care, and much love to you all.